All right, so I'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. Can you all see my screen? Agenda? Yes, so it's 2:35. Call the meeting to order. First thing on the agenda is the update by MPO staff on the ongoing MPO process review. That's why we've invited Mr. Bill Frawley to be here today. I'll give a quick overview of the current process review that we've been doing. Talk a little bit about how our meetings went. Then I'll let Bill answer any questions, or if he wants to touch on some other points. But as you all know, with this talk that we've been having about having a more independent MPO, we decided to list the services of Texas A&M Transportation Institute to help us in this process review, to help us find out, about the role of the fiscal agent, our role as an MPO, right? And also find out more about what we need to do in terms of, what things need to change on our agreement, on our bylaws, to make sure we're doing everything the right way, and to make sure that at the end, the process, benefits, the MPO, our fiscal agent, and also the community as a whole. So Bill was here for a couple of days back in July. I believe it was July. I don't remember the dates exactly. It was for, I think it was 18, 19, and 20th. So first he met with staff, MPO staff, and Sara Garza from TxDOT. She was here as well. We had some discussions just about the whole process, what we think and what needs to be changed, how we can improve some things. Then Bill also had the opportunity to meet with some policy committee members. I know he got to meet with the chairperson, Mayor Pete Sines, and our vice chairperson for the policy committee, Judge Tano Tijerina. And then on Friday before he left, he met with TxDOT as well, with Tito Gonzalez and Roberto Rodriguez. And I believe, I'm not sure if Sada was there as well. But so pretty much this whole process was just kind of the kickoff session, right, of this multi-month process. It's going to take several months, but there's things that we identified in these initial kickoff sessions of things that we should do in the next steps, right? So we talked about how we arrived at this point, what we need to do going forward. Something that we discussed was the bylaw change that needs to happen, and we have an item on the agenda further ahead to discuss that. That was something that we identified that we need to address that bylaw change just to make sure that we're consistent with the current reality of there being a separate director from the City of Laredo Planning Department. Some action items that we discussed during that process review. Something we're going to be doing, like I mentioned, is bylaw change. We talked about the position descriptions and the organization. So we're going to be sending Bill and their team the different position descriptions for the MPO staffers. And then we went over the org chart. I know we gave that to Bill at the last meeting. So we're going to be reviewing that as well. Bill is going to help us with that. It's also going to help us with a financial analysis. And then fiscal agent role and responsibilities. That's something that TTI will be working on, just reviewing those and clearing that up for everybody. And we'll also want to revisit our mission and our vision statement. And as I mentioned, this is going to be several months, right? So we started in July, and we're going to be giving regular updates like this. I believe Bill's coming back in October to do a more formal presentation to the policy committee, and there's going to be other opportunities for him to meet with the technical advisory committee members as well as policy committee members. So that's pretty much where we're at right now in a nutshell. We're just at the beginning, but I think we identified some good things during our meeting, and basically just making sure that we clarify roles and that we align everything that needs to be aligned right now, like this bylaw change that will be important. Bill, I don't know if you want to add on to that.
I think you summed it up very well, and mainly just a couple of things I want to add on is one, I was very impressed with how when I met with various stakeholders, the mayor, the county judge, city leadership, and the staff, everyone really seems to be kind of aimed toward the same basic goal. So that's very helpful and very productive already. And then a lot of what we're going to do is just like Juan had mentioned, we're going to provide some information. A little bit of it will be peer exchange, best practices from some other MPOs with some suggestions. And whichever of those suggestions the policy board ultimately wants to take on and adopt, either now or in the future, they'll have the opportunity to do that. And so, but everything's moving along very well, and I'm very impressed with how things are going.
Thank you, Bill. And yeah, and, I mean, we'll continue communicating with Bill and his team, and just whatever he needs, we'll be sending that over to them. So
Yeah.
there's going to be other opportunities to, right, as well as you had mentioned to me with other policy committee members. I believe we have two other members that just joined us, Luis and Tito Gonzalez. Thank you all. Good afternoon. We're just going over an update on the process review and where that's at right now. So with that being said, I don't know if there's questions from the technical committee members about the process review. Are there any
Juan,
questions?
this is Tito. I just wanted to ask a question real quick. So in the past, I had reached out to Kirby and asked them if I could in fact attend these. I do like to listen in. I know that I'm not trying to have any, external or additional influence, but I just wanted to verify with you and clarify with you that it was okay for me at least to listen in to the discussions.
Yeah, I mean, I'm okay with that. I mean, sorry, I know you're on the policy committee, but as long as, like you said, not vote on anything, not influence anything, you know, I think we're
I
okay
agree.
because of
I agree.
of
Juan,
your
this is
role
Sara.
with TechStop. Thank you, Sada.
Yeah, I agree. I think I did check, Tito. I'm sorry to get back to you, but I think as long as you don't vote or get in, it's fine.
Okay, I'll be just a fly on the wall then. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
One thing I was going to mention, Juan, also, am I mute? No, I'm not muted. I was checking my schedule, and actually, as of now, I'm scheduled to be back in Laredo early part of September, and actually go ahead and participate in your TAC meeting in person. And we're going to have some more work session, kind of worked around that. And then in October, I'll be back. That's September. October, I'll be back for the policy board meeting, if that still
Yes.
works out with you guys.
Yeah, that'll be great.
I'm
And
home.
Perfect.
we were planning to do that TAC meeting in September
Perfect. Okay, good.
in person. I haven't heard anything from the city in terms of pulling back from like public any in-person meetings right now. So we'll play it by ear, but we do want to
Sure.
meet in person. So we'll definitely, and that meeting will be on September the 7th.
Thanks.
Thank you, Bill. So yeah, any other questions from anyone on the committee? Okay. So during our discussions during that process review, we did identify that there's definitely a lot of changes that need to happen to the bylaws, right? But there's some that can happen right now. I know previously we had brought an item to the committee to make some changes to the bylaws to allow for a separate MPO director. However, the wording on that was in direct conflict with the agreement we have with TxDOT and with our fiscal agent, because it actually was giving the authority to the policy committee to hire a MPO director. But right now, that authority does not sit with the policy committee. It still sits with the fiscal agent through the agreement. But we do need to clarify that that there is now a separate director. So we're bringing an item to you all for consideration and a recommendation to the policy committee to initiate a 10-day public review and comment period for the proposed amendment of the MPO bylaws. In Article 2, Section 2.3a, entitled Administration, shall be amended as follows. Remove the City of Laredo Planning Director shall act as a Transportation Planning Director for the MPO, and simply replace that with the MPO shall be led by a full-time MPO Transportation Planning Director. And then when I was looking at the wording again, I see we have MPO twice, right? The MPO shall be led, and then a full-time MPO Transportation Planning Director. That was because that's the way it's worded in the agreement, but we can scratch out one of those MPOs just to make it more concise. And I'll go to the bylaws. And throughout the bylaws, when it refers to the director, it refers to the director as the Transportation Planning Director. So that's why we're using that. And let me zoom into where we would make that change. As I mentioned, Section 2.3, Administration. The wording would just change to the MPO shall be led by a full-time Transportation Planning Director. So this is not in conflict with the current agreement we have, because it's not speaking to who has a responsibility to hire or supervise the director. It's just clarifying that it's a separate director. And this is language we developed in working with Bill of TTI.
Juan, Danny McGee, may I ask a question?
Yes, please.
So I'm confused. Yeah, formally, if it read that the MPO director shall be the City of Laredo Plan Director, then I don't know all the bylaws and stuff. So I'm assuming that there was no selection process or qualifications. So is that in there, or is it going to be in there?
No, it's not something that's listed in the bylaws. This was the only reference that it made to the planning director here and in the technical committee representatives.
Okay.
Um,
So then
it's-
how does that planning director get chosen by the policy committee?
Well, that's the thing that we're trying to figure out through this whole process review. According to our agreement that we have in place, the fiscal agent is the one that decides to hire the director. But in the past,
The fiscal agent right now is the city of Laredo, right? And
that's
then
correct.
it's being looked at to make it the Webb County.
No, we're just. I mean,
City of Laredo.
go ahead, Roberto.
No, yeah, it's still gonna be the city of Laredo then.
So then, but isn't, I guess I'm a little confused because and I know Kirby was the one who initiated all this, but wasn't the whole purpose of that so that the city of Laredo wasn't seen to be the dominant entity in all this, and now they're going to be the one picking the director? That kind of doesn't make sense to me.
No, the only thing that we're trying to do is remove the planning director to be the same person as the MPO director. It's just
I know, but you're saying that the fiscal agent picks it now, so that the fiscal agent is still the city of Laredo, right?
correct. That's not gonna change the
I know, but that doesn't make sense to me. Why wouldn't the whole policy committee or all entities have a say in it? It's still city of Laredo having the say in it.
Right. No, and that's something we want to change, and that's why we're undergoing this process review. Like I said, it's going to take several months.
Well, I just don't see how you can have this one change and not have the other things go with it, because then this ties, you can't hire anybody unless the city of Laredo does it, and that's going to leave a bad taste in the whole committee, I think. Doesn't make sense to me. If I'm the only one, then I won't bring it up anymore. But
I understand where you're coming from, and I know last time we tried to bring it forward, and that's why we try to identify in the bylaws who would hire the director, and we had mentioned it was the policy committee last time we tried to change the bylaws, but then what came up with was that it was in direct conflict with the agreement that we have in place. So then that item had been tabled.
I'm sorry to interrupt. You might clarify that agreement in place is the planning agreement or planning contract between the MPO and TxDOT, which every MPO in Texas has one. And most of them are pretty much the same, but the way that the one is worded right now between the Laredo and Webb County MPO and TxDOT says it'll be the fiscal agent. So there's a step that has to be gone through, and the process will begin to, as soon as possible, get the language in that planning contract changed. So then the bylaws could also be changed to clarify that the policy board will ultimately select the MPO director. And that might take 2 or 3 months because legal people at TxDOT as well as at the fiscal agent will have to look at that. But everyone's headed, and that seems to be, from what I gather, it's headed towards that same kind of goal or direction. I hope that helps clarify and doesn't muddy things up.
I understand what you're saying, but just doing this one change on its own does not make sense to me.
Yeah, no, I understand, Dan, and that's the point. We're trying to get to that point where we're able to have the bylaws exactly the same as the agreement, right? But right now, the reality is that the policy committee took action to appoint a separate interim MPO director. So right now, the reality is that, and the city has already made movements to remove the scope of the MPO from the planning director. So what we're trying to do here is just, reflect what the reality is, that the planning director is no longer the MPO director. And if you have a suggestion on how we can word this differently, maybe to be able to, reflect that, I welcome your input. And that's why we're not mentioning like who's hiring or anything like that, because that needs to be changed on the agreement first. So right now we just want to change this. That way we are able to reflect the current reality of there being a separate director and that the planning director is no longer.
Okay, so
MPO director.
right now you're the interim, right?
Correct.
Okay, so with this change, it says it shall be led. So at the minute that this is implemented, you cannot be the interim because you're not a full-time, right? You still work for the city, right, or not?
He could still be the interim, but when a new full-time permanent director is hired, whoever that person will be. Hopefully things will be in place at that time for the new process. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Well, I'm not a lawyer, but this says it shall be led by a full-time MPO. It doesn't say anything about it. The interim can be appointed or anything.
I see what you're saying.
And we tried, and we did talk about adding language about the policy committee being able to appoint an interim director. But again, then those waters get a little bit muddied because the agreement states that the fiscal agent makes that decision. It doesn't mention anything about an interim director. So we thought this would be the cleanest way right now to go about it, just so it doesn't conflict with that agreement.
Okay. Well, like I
I
said,
understand what you mean.
I'm no lawyer, but it just seems to me we're creating more conflict.
Right, and I understand what you mean.
You're specifying something that can't be filled.
Yeah, actually, at that time, Danny, when we had the actual agreement we have in place, that authority is given to the city manager. So the city manager took he spoke last, the MPO, and he appointed Juan. So we're not contradicting anything that is within the actual agreement.
No, but I guess let me just stay what I'm thinking, and maybe I just didn't make a good point. But on the agreement we have right now with no changes, it says the city of Laredo shall appoint the planning director, but it says the city of Laredo planning director shall be the transportation planning director for the MPO, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah,
But if you change one, the city is still responsible for naming that person, right?
Yeah, no. What the thing is we understand what a fiscal entity is. They either if it's the city or the county, they're still employees of the city or employees of the county. I mean, they still work for the city. For example, right now the city will be the fiscal entity. They will still be employed for the city, but the director will report to the policy committee, not to the city manager.
No.
well, that's what the policy committee wanted, and that's where they're trying to get to. But
Right.
right now, I mean, the reality is, so Kirby, when he was here as the planning director, he was 50% planning director, 50% MPO, right? So he wasn't full time. He wasn't focused full time to the MPO. So this bylaw change is trying to say that, right? That whoever the director is going to be focused full time on the MPO. And right now, I am focused only on the MPO. And that's the directive I got from the policy committee and also from our own HR, director and city management. So I'm solely focused on the MPO. That's how I was hired to focus solely on the MPO. So when it talks about full time, it's talking about just dedicating your full time to that MPO. But like Roberto mentioned, it would still be a city employee. I'm still a city employee.
Okay, so I didn't read that. So basically, you're kind of just playing with words, really. You're still saying it's still going to be a city employee, except not 50-50.
Right. At this point, and even going forward, let's say once the process finishes, this whole process review finishes, and the only thing that's changed on the agreement is that the policy committee can supervise and can make a decision on who they hire. It's very likely that that full-time director would still be a city employee. But those are little nuances that we need to figure out through this whole process review, and that we want to change in the agreement at the end. So these are the little things that we're going through this process review, trying to find out, okay, how is this? We're looking at other MPOs, how they're doing it, because there's different models, right? So for example, in El Paso, I believe the MPO director there is a contract employee of the policy committee, but all the staff of the MPO are City of El Paso employees. And then there's
I guess I was thinking that they were going to go out with a request for employment. Somebody to fill out an application, apply for it, and then somebody.
Eventually, I think that's the point where we want to get to. But I
Okay.
think the agreement, we need to address the agreement first to get
All
to
right,
it.
gotcha. All right.
And one thing to keep in mind when the MPO staff are called, quote, city employees, that doesn't mean ultimately at the end of all this process, they will be solely reporting to city staff and leadership. They will be reporting to the MPO director who would report to the MPO policy board. But in technicality, they follow the city of Laredo, payroll, human resources, those types of things. So it's when you say they're a city of Laredo staff, they are, but they're really more of an MPO staff. And that's sort of a technicality. And it's the same way like in Midland, Odessa, the Permian Basin MPO, they are separate really from either the city of Midland or city of Odessa. City of Odessa functions as their fiscal agent. Those employees receive a paycheck from the city of Odessa, but only because they're the agency that fronts the cash. They're really looked upon by all the member entities as an MPO employee by function. I hope that helps clarify and not muddy things up more.
You're on mute, Dan. Hi, Danny. You're trying to say something? You're on mute.
Okay, I apologize. I said it was clear and then it got muddy again. What I was saying is if you're gonna say it's a city employee doing the MPO director full time, I understand now that I was thinking something else. But by saying that you're fronting the cash, well, you're not. You're paying for that employee. And you might get the cash later on from the MPO, whatever that fund is, but he's still the city of Laredo employee. But it's fine. Like I said, I was thinking that you were going to go out for for people to fill out applications, but you're not there yet. It's going to be a city employee, but just working full time.
Yeah, we're not there yet. And just to clarify, the agreement doesn't mention that the planning director was the MPO director. It just mentioned that the fiscal agent has a responsibility to hire, evaluate, or terminate the MPO transportation planning director, but it never made any comment as to who that should be. Only the bylaws mentioned that.
But now, Danny, the MPO will always need a fiscal agent. It's either the city or the county. They always have to be either employees of the city, employees of the county. Is that right, Bill? We need to have one of those. There has to be one of those two. In this case,
what I heard was no. You hire an MPO director, and then one of those city or the county is the one that fronts the money, and they get reimbursed. That's the reason you have.
Yeah, that's the fiscal agent. They reimburse the money.
But the MPO director does not have to be an employee of either one, right, Juan? It's going to be employee of the MPO.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
But meantime, you're going to keep it where it's an employee of the city.
But Bill, I know it's an employee of the MPO, but does that employee his check comes from the city or from the county? Isn't it? We don't have a checking account for the MPO.
Correct. It comes from the fiscal agent. The paycheck does for the director and all the staff, just like any other expenses to buy pens and pencils, copier paper, whatever they have to buy. And then that money is reimbursed through the federal grant that gets funneled through the state.
Correct. Right. Thanks.
Yeah, sure.
And then just so everyone's aware, on the technical committee, we have these following representatives, right? So the Laredo City Planner, which is your planning director for the city, would still be a representative on this committee. And then the MPO director there's already language in the bylaws that states that the director shall act as the chairperson of the technical committee. So just so you all are aware of that, so we don't have to make any changes there. And right now, all we're asking is just to make a recommendation to the policy committee to either, to initiate the 10-day comment period and then after we initiate this 10-day comment period, then we'll go to or actually, if you all make the recommendation, we'll take this to the policy committee for consideration. If they initiate the 10-day public review and comment period for the proposed amendments, then at that time, we'll start that, and then it has to come back again at the following meeting for a resolution and final approval.
Mándame las fotos.
All right. So, with that being said, like I said, it's just a recommendation to initiate a 10-day public review and comment period for the proposed amendments to the MPO bylaws.
Great. I make a motion to approve.
Okay. Who was that?
Roberto.
Okay, Roberto. Thank you. There's a motion. Is there a second?
Is there discussion after the motion, or once the motion's done? It's done?
Motion. I do it after the discussion after the second.
All right.
Is there a second? I think I can second, so I'll second that. Discussion. Let me wait to see if Danny had something to say. We have a motion and a second. Danny, now discussion. Do you want to add something else?
Yeah, I just think we need to either expand the wording on this or add the part about that it's still a city employee. I think it's a little bit ambiguous. That's the reason I was confused. Unless you're trying to hide that fact, but
No, not at all. Just trying to make as few changes as possible, so we don't get into other conflicts with the agreement, and not answer all the questions right now. Because through the process review, we'll talk about whether the director will be a contract employee or still remain a city employee. So we're just trying to keep it as clean as possible with
can you add
anticipating future changes.
Can you since we're keeping the same fiscal agent, can you say shall be led by a full-time director appointed by the fiscal agent or something like that?
We don't want to say that. Hi, this is Sara. We don't want to say that because we're trying to change that from the agreement eventually. So unless we have to come back and change this again.
I mean, for the sake of transparency, I think in my opinion, needs more, but I'm the only one. That's fine. We can go on.
Bill, I'm going to ask you a lifeline here. Would you, what if we actually mention the agreement, like refer to the agreement, like as prescribed in the agreement, between TxDOT and the policy committee? I don't know if that would muddy things more. Or...
I think that would almost muddy things more. And this just has to be a stepwise process, and it will all be transparent every step along the way. But I mean, if the policy board ultimately wants to hold off on this until the whole entire planning agreement contract with TxDOT gets modified and all the changes to the bylaws are made at once, that's it's fine. This is though the step that can be done right now that's not in conflict with the planning contract, to say that the Laredo Webb County MPO shall be led by a full-time MPO planning director, transportation planning director, however it's worded. And that's an important step to show that it's not a shared position of the city of Laredo planning director and the MPO director.
Any other comments or suggestions? So there was a motion and a second, and guess we'll call the question with that motion and second. All those in favor, state aye, or state that you're opposed. It's easier that way if you just. Is anybody opposed?
Opposed?
Any?
Yeah.
Okay. We have one in opposition. That being said, motion carries. We'll make note of that. All right. Moving on to the next item. It's the update by MPO staff on the upcoming MPO Policy Committee meeting draft agenda. So let me go to that. Again, at the last Policy Committee meeting, the Policy Committee decided to change the regularly scheduled meetings from the third Monday at 1:30 to the third Wednesday at 1:30. So the next meeting will be Wednesday, August 18th. So I just want to make sure everybody was aware of that, because I know some of the technical committee members do attend those meetings. So that'll be on Wednesday, August 18th at City Council Chambers at 1:30 p.m. And Angie from her staff has already sent out an email, I believe, to both the Policy Committee and Technical Committee on the future dates of those meetings. So on the agenda, we have the call meeting order, call row, citizen comments. And then for the items requiring policy committee action, we have approval of the minutes from the last meeting. And then the same item we're just discussing right now, received public testimony and initiate a 10-day public review and comment period for the following proposed amendments of the MPO bylaws. And then the discussion with possible action on the Achar Ruthinger Road project. I know at the last meeting, the county mentioned that those updates would now be having to come from their text dot because they have finished their portion of the project. Is that correct, Luis? I believe. Then
Yeah, that's
Go ahead.
correct. That's correct one. But also, it's been a while since we haven't gotten an update from the city projects that are funded with the Texas funds, such as Carlton Road and Fletcher Lane. Back in the days, we used to get an update of those projects from engineering, because those are projects that are similar to the Charutinger. They're using somehow they're using an earmark or Texas funds. So we'd like to add those to the update list right here, to the reports and
reports.
I mean to the status of it.
Hi, Ramon. Are you available? Would you be available on Wednesday to provide that update?
Correct. Yeah. I don't know if it's too late to add that into the agenda. You know, the special corporate action on the
yeah.
The city projects. You know, the Carlton Road, the Fletcher Lane. But also remember there was a topic on the Unitech, you know, development of the traffic congestion. What was the county and the city? How are they gonna work together to develop a strategy on the congestion for Unitech once the Texas brings that project?
Correct.
So I don't know where can we play those kind of
Yeah, we can put that. I know we had that item last time on the discussion for the Unitech. We can bring that up again
please.
and discussion. And then for the I'm not sure if Ramon's here, but I'm not sure he's the one that's giving that update before for those other projects. Just wanted to check his availability.
Back then, I think it was Gabriel was still with the city. Gabriel Martinez, and
oh, okay.
He used to do some of those.
MPO. Okay. Let me find out, and so we can put the tech one, and then just in terms of the updates, I don't know if we'll have enough time to gather everything, or who would be able to provide that. But if we don't get it for this meeting, we could definitely have it on the September meeting. Is that okay?
Yeah, that'll be okay.
Okay, that way I have time to.
Make sure he's there. Yeah, and at least we can do it every 3 months or something, you know.
Okay. Yeah.
Every quarter or something.
Yeah, we can do that. And then we have so we'll add the item that Roberto's mentioning, and then on the reports and presentations, status report by the Regional Mobility Authority, and then on the director's comments, I'll provide an update on this ongoing MPO process review, then our adjournment, and I'll go ahead and follow up Roberto mentioned to see if we can do that update for this meeting with the city projects. I know I did go to the PNC meeting, the planning and zoning meeting. They had asked for the MPO to present. I went to give a presentation, and those were questions that they were asking, right, about Fletcher Lane, Calton, Santa Maria, and I think they want to know more where those projects were at. But I think Roberto, thank you for clarifying, right, that like you mentioned that in the past the city has provided those updates. So I'll follow up on that.
Can I ask a question real quick?
Yes, Danny.
Hey, Roro, when does the charter injury go to bid? July? What year?
Right now we have it in 24. We had it in 23. 23. Okay. I'm sorry, late 23.
Late 23?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, I'm getting questions from developers. I guess they're already looking to start filling up those areas with more trucks. So.
All right, so we'll move on to discussion of old or new business. There's an item. If you all have something you want to bring up, or like Roberto did right now, like asking something to be placed on the agenda, you all can bring that up. And Roberto, I'll follow up with you after, just so we can have a conversation about that. Make sure that that we bring the information that you are looking for.
Good. Thanks.
Is there anything else? Anything else that needs to be added? Bill, is there anything else that you want to touch on the update process? I know you mentioned that you'll be here on the review process. You would be here in September for the September 7th meeting? Okay.
Yes, I will. And we'll have even a little bit more of an update and everything. And again, always happy to answer any questions. And if anyone needs to contact me one-on-one with some concerns, thoughts, please feel free.
Thank you for that, Bill, and I appreciate you joining us today. It's definitely
Glad to
helpful
do
to have you.
Thanks.
Right. Anyone else like to add anything? Right. And just we, as you all know, we've been having our monthly active transportation committee meetings. Those continue to be well attended, and you know, at the last meeting, Gracie chaired that meeting. I know we had an update on the different trail projects coming into the community. So you all are always welcome to attend those meetings. They're always the last Wednesday of the month at noon time. Right now they're also virtual as well, and we post that agenda on our website. But you all are more than welcome to attend as well. So with that being said, is there a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn. This is Roberto.
Roberto, second. I think Victoria second, right? All right. Discussion. No? Right. Anybody oppose adjournment? All right. We'll see you all next time. Thank you for joining us. Just a reminder, the next policy committee meeting is on Wednesday at 1:30 at City Council Chambers. Hope to see some of y'all there.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
See ya.